Hi everyone, I'm on my walk with our family dog Jaffa. And I was wondering what you think is the most courageous animal on earth. Is it a lion? Or a tiger? Or a gorilla? Or maybe it's a spider? Or a bee? I wonder why you chose that animal to be courageous. Is it because it's bold and strong? Or perhaps it's because it's clever and creative? You know, people can be bold and courageous too. The Bible says in Proverbs 28 verse 1 that good people are as bold as lions. You know, in our first summer lockdown, I bought a paint by numbers kit for my family to enjoy. Have a look at the finished picture. Can you see the tiger cub looking at its reflection in the puddle? It seems to see itself differently to what it actually looks like. We chose this picture because it said something to us. What do you think it says to you? Have you ever looked in a mirror and given yourself an encouraging talk like, "Come on, you can do it. Give it a try"? Perhaps you've looked in the mirror and you've seen the potential and the possibility for you to be bold, strong, and courageous as a lion or a tiger. Today in our assembly, we are looking at the word compassion and how we can have the boldness and the courage to care. I wonder what that looks like for all of us in this time. We are all in lockdown and may not feel that we have the freedom or the strength to be bold and courageous in our care and compassion for each other. I wonder what that would look like.
Hey Tara, I know of a great story in the Bible that might inspire us all to have the courage to care. It's about a young girl who was so full of compassion for her baby brother that she acted in a very bold and courageous way. The story takes place many thousands of years ago when the Hebrew people were slaves in Egypt. Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, had given orders for his soldiers to kill all of the baby Hebrew boys. Now, how awful is that? The Hebrews were terrified. They tried to hide their babies away in any way that they could. And check this out to see how one mother tried to hide her baby.
A man from the Levi tribe married a woman from the same tribe, and she later had a baby boy. He was a beautiful child, and she kept him inside for 3 months. But when she could no longer keep him hidden, she made a basket out of reeds and covered it with tar. She put him in the basket and placed it in the tall grass along the edge of the Nile River. The baby's older sister stood off at a distance to see what would happen to him. About that time, one of the king's daughters came down to take a bath in the river, while her servant woman walked along the riverbank. She saw the basket in the grass and sent one of the young women to pull it out of the water. When the king's daughter opened the basket, she saw the baby and felt sorry for him because he was crying. She said, "This must be one of the Hebrew babies." At once, the baby's older sister came up and asked, "Do you want me to go get a Hebrew woman to take care of the baby for you?" "Yes," the king's daughter answered. So the girl brought the baby's mother, and the king's daughter told her, "Take care of this child, and I will pay you." The baby's mother carried him home and took care of him. When he was old enough, she took him to the king's daughter, who adopted him. She named him Moses, because she said, "I pulled him out of the water."
Do you recognise the story? How did the mother try and save her baby? Well, yes, she kept the baby as long as she could in her own home. But when that was no longer safe, she made a basket waterproof and let the baby float down on the River Nile. Now, personally, that doesn't seem very safe to me, but maybe it was safe because someone was watching over the baby. And can you remember who that was? Well, that's right. It was his sister. Her name was Miriam. She watched as the baby in the basket floated down the river, and she watched as Pharaoh's daughter, the princess, came down to bathe in the river. And then she watched as the princess found the baby in the basket. And it was then that Miriam knew that now was the time to be bold, to be courageous. And what did she do? Well, that's right. She ran and she spoke to the princess. I think Miriam was bold and strong, but she was also clever and creative. She was bold to speak to the princess and clever and courageous to suggest that she knew of someone, her own mum and the mother of the baby, of course, who could look after the baby for the princess. What a clever and creative plan. I wonder what Miriam's mum thought when she was brought in to look after the baby, her own baby, for the princess. Miriam had saved the baby, her baby brother, in such a compassionate and courageous way. Can you remember what the baby was called? Well, again, yeah, you're right. It was Moses. And if you read on in the Bible, you will find that God used Moses in a mighty and incredible way to free the Hebrew people from their slavery in Egypt.
Wow! Simon, that is such an amazing story of Miriam's courage to care. She was just a child, but she was so bold, watching her baby brother in the river and speaking up for him to the princess. I wonder how we can have the courage to care for our friends and family during this time. I wonder if it is those little acts of kindness and thoughtfulness that make all the difference. Can you think of ways to show you care right now, in this time and in this place? Perhaps writing a letter or a card to a friend to show that you care for them. Perhaps making a refreshing drink for your mum or your dad when they're looking tired. Or offering to help your sister or brother to tidy their bedroom. Or perhaps just helping to set the table without being asked. You might think that you can't make much of a difference. You might think that you're too young to show you care or do something brave like writing a card to someone. And you may think that your little act is just too small to make much of a difference. But you know, you will be surprised at how much of a difference it will make to someone. There is a man called Loren Easley who wrote a story about a starfish thrower. And that explains that our simple acts of kindness and compassion can make a big difference. Have a look at this little story.
One day, a man was walking along the beach when he noticed a boy picking up starfish and throwing them into the ocean. Approaching the boy, he asked, "Excuse me, but what are you doing?" The boy replied, "Throwing starfish back into the ocean. The sun is rising and the tide is going out. If I don't throw them back, they'll die." The man laughed to himself and said, "But there's too many starfish on this beach. You can't possibly make a difference." After listening politely, the boy bent down, picked up another starfish, and threw it into the ocean. Then turning to the man, he said, "I made a difference to that one."
I suppose the courage we need is just the simple act of trying. Think of which way that you can show you care for your family, your friends, your neighbour, and then just try. Have a go. Be brave and do it.
The most amazing thing about having the courage to try and do something kind and caring is that often it gets passed on. When we receive kindness and compassion from someone, we often pass back kindness to someone else because we know how amazing and special we feel when we receive it ourselves. There is so much to think about in today's assembly, isn't there? So let's maybe take a moment to think, to reflect. The Bible says that good people are as bold as lions. No matter how young we are and how small we feel, we can always have the courage to care. And Miriam showed that in the way that she looked after her baby brother, Moses. We can show kindness and compassion not only in our homes right now, but we can be brave and courageous by showing that we care others in small acts of kindness, but go a long way, like sending a card of encouragement to someone who's lonely or sick. We may not think that what we're doing is very much, but it can make a very big difference to the person that we show kindness to. Do you remember that in the starfish story? Having courage to care is all about trying, having a go, trying to make a difference. And that when we care, it causes a chain reaction for others to have the courage to try and start caring too.
Let's turn all this thinking into a prayer. And you can say Amen with me at the end if you agree. Dear God, thank you for stories of other people that inspire us to have the courage and the love to care. Thank you that even the very small things that we do to show we care can be the very thing that makes a difference in someone's life. Dear God, you are big and great. Please give us the strength and the courage to have a go, to just start to try to do things in our home with our family and with our friends that show we care for them. Amen.